Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at Riderflex. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the Riderflex show for updates on new episodes. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out the book we recently launched, The Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring, available for purchase on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Mike Smith on the Riderflex podcast. Good morning, Mike. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for checking in with me, Steve.
Yeah, no problem. You in Denver?
I am. I'm right. I'm looking at the Capitol building.
Oh, you're downtown, huh?
Yeah, my son started at a new school about 2 blocks away this year, and so we moved offices to be a little closer there.
Oh, your office. I see your office is downtown. Gotcha. All right. Do you
right.
live? Whereabouts do you live? North, south, east, west, downtown?
Little south of downtown, neighborhood called West Washington Park or West Wash Park.
Okay. Yeah. I know the area. I know the area well. We could do a whole podcast on my thoughts around downtown Denver over the last 24 months, but maybe we shouldn't get into it.
Yeah, it's got its problems right now. It needs a good scrubbing.
Needs a good scrubbing. There you go. That's a nice way to put it. Yeah. Last time I was down there, I'm like, what is going on here, man? We need to.
Yeah. I as a startup guy, I have a inexpensive office, and as part of that neighborhood is a lot of temporary neighbors. So
you're being so kind. Oh yeah. But hey, I love Colorado in general, but yeah, we got some work to do downtown. But anyway, so Mike, before we get into Acclimate, you got a great career. You got some fun stuff in your history, Naval Academy, some a bunch of things I want to get into. So why don't you give us let's start with the early life. Mom, dad, siblings, where you grew up, if you don't mind, give us a little history there.
Yeah, sure. I was born up the road in Casper, Wyoming. My dad was in the oil field. He was a geophysicist, and he grew up back east, but he always wanted to live out west, and geology and rocks were kind of his jam, and so that's how we got into that. But he really wanted to live in Alaska, so when I was 2, we moved to Alaska. I grew up from till about the age of 6 in what's now Anchorage.
Wow.
But he used to work kind of on and off offshore oil field or up on the North Slope, or so which was cool because we had like a week on, week off with him, or sometimes he'd go 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
And he had like a jet boat, and we'd go get lost upriver,
cool.
which was like a super fun. Like all my earliest memories are out in the woods there.
That's great.
Age 6, he lost his job in the big layoffs that happened in 1986, and so we moved to Idaho. He became a teacher. My mom went full-time at being a nurse, and that's kind of where I grew up, in Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho. So I can see where the love for the outdoors came in early in your life, because your dad was into it, and then that obviously followed you a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of a family thing. The reason we moved to Idaho is that my mother's parents moved to Idaho in retirement. My grandfather was a forester, worked for International Paper, and
oh, really?
And yeah, so my parents bought the adjoining property to theirs when I was a kid, and my dad and I, when I was the summers after 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, he and I built a house together on that property.
Wow.
But in the mornings, we'd go hiking with my grandparents, and so it was kind of like, you get to go learn about a forest from a professional, who also happens to, be your grandparent. Like it was a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah, that's great. Do you still have land up there, property up in Idaho for your family, or no?
Nope. My parents went through a divorce after about like 4 decades of marriage, and kind of one of the results of that was that they both kind of went their different ways, and that property got sold.
So you were grown when they got divorced then?
Yeah, I was a grown man. I was with kids of my own at that point. So a little unusual to have parents that do that, but apparently that happens a little bit more often than we like to know or like to think.
I'm always curious about it though, because people that get divorced after like 40 years, I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
I think so, like I don't want to dive too much into my parents' marriage. It's kind of theirs. But one of the things I would say is on the outside of it is that, we all like change and grow through our lives, and
Yeah.
they didn't grow together. They kind of grew apart, and they didn't do enough to make sure that they're growing together in the right direction. And
Yeah.
that's something I'm kind of like taking on for my own marriage, is just to make
Yeah.
sure that I'm trying to grow the same way my wife is, because I love her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. Great point. Good advice. Did you have siblings? Were you the only kid or?
No, I'm the eldest of three. My two sisters are close in age. Katie's a year and a half younger than I am, and Mary, she goes by Emmy now, is a year and a half younger than Katie.
Okay.
So super, super successful. Katie's a veterinarian, kind of like a real high end veterinarian. She's an internal medicine veterinarian, criticalist. She's kind of
Okay.
like in human doctor worlds, like she's like four different specialties at once.
Wow.
And then Emmy, she works in politics. She's run a couple of like big political campaigns at the Senate level and then at the governor level. So
Wow. All right.
now
Well,
she does some consulting within politics.
yeah, great. Yeah, she probably makes a lot of money doing that. Just do the consulting.
Yeah, it's funny because like all the political types, like you have to kind of be in like the campaign to be seen as part of the team sometimes, and but it's just an incredible grind, and there's not as much money, and then like the moment you step out, you're like, it's still a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but like
Mm.
the brother in me is happy that she's slowed down just a touch there, because more money, less stress.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, super stressful. So you got into the Naval Academy, which is not easy to do. So were you like a straight A student, good kid, athlete, the perfect kid? Tell me about you
I was
when you were in
very
high
I was
school.
uh kind of a recurring theme in my life. I think I had like a lot of horsepower, not a lot of motivation. And so um, like I just didn't like doing homework. I didn't feel any reason to do it. And nobody, my parents, I think like, had to beat me with a 2x4 to do it. Not literally, but like they were just always on me. And so, I did A's and B's. I did all right. Um,
Okay.
but I was never like one of the good students, but I was always in like all the AP courses. And
Okay.
I took like more, I think, AP courses than anybody else in my high school, or close to.
All right.
Like even to the point of having to like take night school, like PE, in order to make more room for the AP courses.
Wow.
And and then I just had like this real passion for I'm just kind of a passionate guy a lot of times. And so I think the thing that got me into the Naval Academy is that I started running like a series of concerts for charity. Just I liked ska music when I was a kid, and I would put together these concerts, and like it was just like I saw a problem, I wanted to go work on it,
Okay.
and I kind of brought the resources to do it. And like I think the Naval Academy looked at my guess. I've never actually talked to anybody on the admissions board, but my guess is they kind of looked at that and go like, this kid's got like he's actually got some talent here, and some motivation, but high school is just not totally his jam. Um, so
Interesting.
that would be my read of how I got in there. The other thing
And
I would say is it's not that hard to get in if you're from Idaho, or at least it wasn't at the time, because there's not a lot of people. There's not as many people, attempting to go to the Naval Academy as say from like Maryland.
I see. So strategically, they're trying to pluck kids from across the country on purpose. Then there's a strategy around that. I see. I didn't know that.
It's not only a strategy; it's the law. Actually,
Oh,
every
ah,
congressperson and every senator gets 5 people at the academy, and they get a certain amount of
I
nominations.
I
So if you
see.
live in a low density state, where you have
Okay.
like a disproportionate amount of representation in Congress, then it's a little easier.
I see. I didn't know that. Thanks for the education around that. Why the Naval Academy? I mean, you grew up in the West, right? Forest, like mountains, like why water? Why the Navy?
Um, I just liked the vibe better of the Navy.
Okay.
Um, and you're 18, you're like I was a dumb kid, like
Yeah.
so. You just look at it and you go like, oh yeah, the Navy seems fun. Like I mean, like it's just as dumb as that. I didn't, I never was interested in doing like Army stuff. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
All right.
And the Air Force seemed okay, but like, and it's funny because I ended up becoming a pilot, right? But just like the vibe of the Air Force for some reason didn't sit with me. It's just as dumb as that.
Interesting.
Uh,
Interesting. Well, I've been to Annapolis a few times, and I've been downtown when the cadets, I guess is what you call them, right? I've been downtown when they're out and about a little bit, like at dinner time or happy hour time. I've been down there for some conferences and stuff, and and they're walking around downtown. And the one thing that I still see clearly is just the respect and the way they carry themselves, even when they're out on the town. Like, man, I mean, yes, sir, no, sir, open the door for people. I mean, just very well put together. Every kid that I saw, and I remember a couple of times thinking, man, okay, yeah, these guys, they must have been told that they will be killed if they act up downtown. I don't know.
there's a little bit of that, but there's also like this component of like organizational culture, like that's really important. That like, it's not that you're like fearing retribution from your superiors. It's the fact that like we all hold each other to higher standards. And so like when people start like sliding, like the first people to kind of question them are their peers generally.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's, like it's now what is beat into your head is that, and it's all the Naval Academy's gotten only more selective since I went there. But is that there were, I think they had like a 9% acceptance rate last year. That means that, for every one of you that got in there was 9 other people that wanted. And so, free education, incredible opportunities, and so if you're not taking this thing seriously, like you don't belong here. You should have make space for somebody else. Get out of here.
Gotcha. Yeah, totally get it. Yep, very good. Did you know you were going to make a career out of being in the Navy? Did you think ahead of time, I'm going to do my 20 years, or was that a plan, or no? Okay.
No, I went to the Navy thinking like it'd be fun to like drive ships. I thought I was too tall to be a pilot. I'm like 6'5".
Oh, you are? Oh, you're big dude. Okay. Yeah.
My call sign when I was flying was TAB, TABB, which is short for that's a big boy. There's a less PC version. But anyway, so yeah, I'm about as big as you get with my flying in like my former career. And
Okay.
yeah, I went there thinking I'd be a ship driver. I'd see what it's like, get a good education, didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. I was kind of aimless in high school, as evidenced by my grades.
Okay.
And then, then I did like a summer cruise where I was flying with a helicopter squadron, said I wanted to go fly helicopters. And then it turns out I was too tall for helicopters, where they put a new seat cushion in the training helicopter, and that qualified me out of all of them because I'm short in the legs and long in the torso.
Okay.
And so then it was like jets or bust for me at that point. So I went out and got jet grades to go do that.
How about that? All right. Ended up staying 20 years. Thanks for your service, by the way. Did you ever see any scary stuff? Anything you want to share? Like were you ever in like some super bad danger situations?
I had kind of a weird career. So like I was first class post 9/11 to graduate. So like all of my friends went off to war. Flight training for me took about 4 years. So I was kind of bouncing around down the Southeast, Florida, Mississippi, Texas, Virginia. Finally get out to the fleet, qualified in the Super Hornet. And then I was deployed to the Western Pacific with a squadron out of Japan, which I adored, and I had such a great time there. But it was also like we were like the Admiral's personal aircraft carrier. So we never left the Western Pacific while all these guys were chopping in and out of Fifth Fleet. So so like all my stuff was peacetime. It was like fighting the Cold War, just reminding the Chinese that like there is a U.S. Navy presence here. That was pretty much what we did. Okay. So I did have I had a couple of scary moments, like landing the ship, on the ship at night, bad weather, deck pitching, hooks not catching the wire, going around a couple of times, like that. That got my attention, but but as far as like wartime stuff, no, that was not my part of my career at all.
Okay. Do you see any, we don't have to go down this path too far, but I'm just curious your thoughts. Do you see any potential dangers with the Chinese or the Russians, as we move along here? We don't have to do a whole hour podcast on it, but based on your experience, are you watching in the background? Are you and your buddies talking? Are you like a little nervous, or you're like, it's all going to be fine?
Yeah, so I did my 20 years, but the last 8 years were in the reserves, so I wasn't like super involved, and I wasn't flying in that case. So I'm a little out of the loop.
Okay.
On the bigger picture stuff there, like I think within the military, you shouldn't ever uh underestimate your potential adversaries, but in the case of like the Russians, there was always like this kind of sense of like maybe they don't totally have their act together, and that's kind of being like shown in Ukraine.
Okay.
And in the case of the Chinese, they very much have their act together, and they're doing a lot of smart things and advancing, and they've been really as a democracy, we need to kind of get our act together a little bit here, because one of the advantages of a totalitarian state is that you can have coherent strategy that lasts for decades, and that takes willpower to execute in a democratic nation. Mm-hmm. And so the Chinese have been executing that strategy slowly and surely for decades. So I think there's that, but like when I think of like strategy concerns, I actually I'm less concerned about like a nation state, and actually more about like non-human threats, threat multipliers like climate or more disease. I think those are much more destabilizing to the security picture.
Yeah, that carries us right into what you're doing for a living. The one thing that makes me nervous, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just talking ignorantly, just like a commoner would. But I guess what makes me a little bit nervous is, I feel like nuclear weapons don't really matter anymore, right? Because I just feel like nobody's going to use them. So it's almost like, okay, well, let's just set those aside. If nobody's going to use them, then, if China decided to get scrappy, it could get messy.
Yeah, I mean, the things to think about with China. So nuclear weapons are worth considering, but like putting those aside for a second, which is that like, if China decided to start becoming particularly belligerent, like all the nations that we're interested in, they would have to essentially attack by going through the ocean. And that an amphibious operation is a much, much harder thing to pull off. Yeah, and there's a lot of advantages to the home team on that one.
Yeah, no doubt. Embargoes on product that they ship over here scares me more than anything.
Yeah, we have such an integrated economy. Like is it a zero likelihood scenario? No, but like I think it's a low likelihood scenario that like as long as we keep our economies fairly intertwined, that there's not much reason to act the fool on that.
Gotcha. Tell me, are you married? Well, you said you're married, kids, I think, right? Tell me, what do you want to share? How did you meet your wife? How many kids you got? Give us a little update there.
Yeah, sure. My wife, Lindsay, and I have been married for about 12 and a half years. We'll be 13 in October. Okay. We met in 2008 at a wedding between two friends of ours.
Oh.
And it was, kind of a funny story. We were set up a little bit, but she was kind of resistant to the whole thing because I was living in Japan at the time.
Oh, right.
And,
well, of course. Yeah. She's like,
matter of fact, like I actually got off of deployment to go to this wedding. Like it was this really weird thing. So like, I met her, we danced. She wasn't interested. I went and danced with other people. Our friends kept pushing us back together. Finally, at the end of the night, like I was just like, because like 24 hours after I did this, I was back on ship, like out in the Pacific, like gone.
Yeah.
And so I said like, hey, can I just get your email address? It's clear they wanted us to talk to each other. And so she gave it to me, I think probably against her better judgment. And I think I was just a lot more charming by email than I was in person. So we did this like crazy long distance thing where I was at sea and then living in Japan, and she was going through training in Tennessee. And so I would call her when I was going to bed, but she was driving to work in the morning. And so we had like this, you couldn't have been more long distance and without like going to the moon.
Yeah. Right.
And then I came back stateside and I was an instructor in Virginia. And so I used to volunteer to take the jet on the road because I wasn't single, but I wasn't married either.
Okay.
And so whenever somebody needed a jet moved across the country, I would do it because I could stop into Nashville because they had government contract gas there. and I'd go hang out with her for a night, and then we'd go out on a date and get breakfast, and then I'd go get in the jet and fly away.
Wow.
So we did
Wow.
that for a while, and then I proposed to her, and she moved to Virginia, and then I finished up my time in Virginia. I went we did about 2.5 years when I was out of the cockpit doing some staff work in Naples, Italy.
Okay. Oh, wow.
That's where my son Luke was born.
Oh, cool. All
And
right.
then I wanted to get out off of active duty. We decided to move to Denver. Shortly thereafter, Ellen was born, and that's the family, man. We got Luke's a very creative and funny 9-year-old. Ellen's an incredibly precocious, like 7-year-old that I mostly just have to stay out of the way of. And I trained him to like all the things that I like, so we get to do them all together as a family, which is cool.
That's pretty cool. Now your son, he's gonna have something going for him, because when he gets in high school, he'll be the only kid probably that will be able to say, "I was born in Italy and I have dual citizenship."
Yeah, the poor dude, like he was born the town that he was born in is Grucignano da Versa. So he's going to have to put that on every like form for the rest of his life. As far it's like 50 letters long, and so
Wow,
yeah.
that's pretty good. What's your wife do?
She's a physician. She works as a hospitalist at a local hospital here.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Did you want to come back to Denver? Did you pick Denver specifically for the startup stuff that we'll get into, or is that just because you grew up in Casper and you were familiar with Colorado and you love mountain states, or what was the reason there?
Yeah, my sister Emmy moved here first with her campaigns, and she just said this is where she's planting her flag, and so
I see.
she really sold us on it. Denver was as far east as I was willing to live. I wanted to live in a mountain state. And then, when we started looking at, the balance of like what I wanted to do, what my wife's career was, where we could kind of have access to the outdoors, et cetera, Denver just kind of rose to the top of the list. Plus we had family,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and since then we've had more family move. My mother moved here, and then so did my in-laws.
I'm with you, bro. I'm a Mountain State guy now. We've been here 17 years. I grew up in Oklahoma, and I'll go back home and see family and stuff. And I always tell them, I'm like, look, I am, sorry, I'm never coming back. I'm a Mountain State guy now. That's it. Some Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado. I got to be in a mountain state. I can't. I love just going up to the mountains and doing the activities and all the outdoor stuff. So, yeah, I'm totally with
Yeah.
you.
I like to think of myself as a public lands owner, you know what I mean? And I want to be as close to the public lands as I can, because like,
Yes,
it's such a quality of life enhancer. Like just to, on a weekend to go disappear up into the woods and be alone with your
I do.
family and like, some incredible scenery.
I do it all the time. I don't know if you checked my LinkedIn or anything like that, but yeah, bro, I have a Jeep that's all done up, and I probably did 15 solo trips last summer by myself. And then my wife and I go together with a little trailer we have. She won't go in the Jeep, do the tent sleeping, but yeah, I go all the time. It is for me, psychologically, physically, mentally, I'll go up for 2 or 3 nights and just get away, turn the phone off. And if you understand, but a lot of people don't, right? It just does something to me. I come back, I just feel so refreshed and recharged and ready, and come back with some new ideas. I mean, I love it. Yeah, I go all the time. The problem now, Mike, is that going where I don't see other people is getting harder.
Yeah, that's why I do the backpacking. Because if you have to sweat to get in there, usually people are a little bit
Yeah,
less inclined to do such a thing. And I don't go to like the high traffic areas generally.
yeah,
My kids are pretty good backpackers. Even at 7 and 9, they can do about like 6, 7, 8 miles.
okay,
But
okay,
usually the limiting factor is the load that I'm carrying, because they don't have like that much of a load.
yeah,
And so we'll get in like 3, 4 miles, which is not that much, but it's enough that like the crowds
just
disappear.
enough. Yep, just enough. That's great. That's perfect. Can I ask you? We could, by the way, me and you could talk about camping for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
What is your favorite pad, sleeping pad? What are you currently using? What brand? Because man, I've been through so many trying to figure out one that doesn't, my shoulders aren't hurting and everything else, like what are you currently using?
I use a Big Agnes.
What is it?
I think it's called Big Agnes.
Big Agnes. Okay. All right. All right. That's the brand name. Okay.
Let me just look it up real quick.
Kind of like half self-inflate and then blow it up the rest, or what, or has it got like uh, do you have to use the little bag to put a little more air in it, or it just folds out?
I mean, I open it up. It's an air mattress. You blow it up with your lungs.
Okay.
But it's not too bad. It's thick and it's warm, man. Like,
Is
I
it?
actually have an arthritic shoulder, so I'm particularly sensitive to like the shoulder issues, man.
Me too.
And
Yes.
you know, you don't feel quite as much like you've been sleeping on the ground when you with this pad as some of the others, but it's thick. I mean, it's, I don't know,
Okay.
like 3-4 inches thick.
Okay. All right, cool. I'll try it. Cause yeah, I got that shoulder arthritis. Yeah. I mean, I love going. I just, the next morning, I'm like, damn, I'm sore.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It takes a little bit more to get things moving, when you get gray in the beard.
yes. And by the way, it's not like I don't like people. I mean, I don't mind visiting with people in the mountains, but a lot of times I'm going up there specifically to get away from people sometimes, and then I'll work my way like 3 hours back into like a pretty remote spot where I've purposely tried to kind of get away from people, and then somebody will come in there and camp 300 yards from me. I'm like, no, man, no.
Yeah. I've definitely thought about packing up a couple of times when there was somebody just like a little bit too close and just being like, I may not have as quite the view if I go somewhere else, but I won't have to listen to this guy snore. And that's what I want. So,
yep, totally agree. So, okay. So you get out of the Navy, you retire. What, talk to me about what you decided to do and how, and then kind of walk us into how the entrepreneurial spirit, like how'd that even happen? Give me the transition.
yeah. So a couple things in my background. I think I have a couple family members that have gone down the entrepreneurial track and
I see. Okay.
To varying degrees of success.
Okay.
Like I have a cousin that ended up taking like a company public. I have another cousin, an uncle that worked in med tech for a while. And I saw that, I saw in very clear relief, like the struggle with both of them. So like, I kind of knew what I was getting into.
Okay.
The other part was I had like an incredible safety net, right? Which is that like, I had like this reserve job that I could go do and bring in a little extra income and help me with like the mental part of transitioning out of active duty into the reserves. And then I had a wife that is a physician, and
yeah, that helps. That helps.
The numbers, she's working part-time, but we have a pretty great quality of life. And like, it just gave me a lot of runway to go, like try to chase after like, something big.
Yeah.
The other part of it is that, when I was a kid, my grandfather, that forester I was telling you about, there was a big fire in 1989 when I was 9 years old called the Loman Fire. And it seemed like super memorable and it was huge for the time, but anymore it's like a really small wildfire.
All right.
44,000 acres, and it put up a mushroom cloud, and that was kind of at the end of the Cold War, and like you just look at that and you go like, that ain't right. And my grandfather said, don't worry about it, the Forest Service will replant it or it'll grow back. And, this is, he was a little advanced for his time. And like, he actually understood how important fire was to like kind of forest ecology. But he has also like, I don't think he had seen where like things were actually going, which is that like these fires were a sign that like the forest was out of balance in a couple of ways. One is that they'd suppressed wildfires for so long that there was this big fuel load. And the other part was that the climate was changing. It was just getting hotter. And so anyways, what do I know? I'm 9 years old. I say, okay, grandpa, let's keep walking. And so I get married in 2010 and 2011, trying to set that hook for my wife, tell her about, because she grew up back east. And about like how like, hey, I don't know when this Navy thing's ending, but like, I know like when it does, like I want to go live in the West. Yeah. And so I took her back to Idaho. It was the end of May, beginning of June. And as any Westerner knows, like that's just like it's just like fishing with dynamite, right? Like everything's gorgeous. It's, snow on the mountains, rivers super full, everything's like really green. The weather's like,
Perfect timing. Good
day
job.
and cool
Good
at
job,
night.
Mike. Yeah. Good strategy move. You took her right at the right time.
Yeah. So anyway, so we go around Idaho. The whole, the state looks lovely, and
Yeah,
we
she's
go
like,
by the
yeah,
Loman
cool.
fire, and it was bare, and it was 23 years after the fact.
Still.
Yeah, 22 years after the fact, and it's still bare to this day, actually.
Why? Well, I guess that's a whole nother. I know it's probably an hour answer, but why?
Uh, Short version is fires burn more intensely than they did historically, and so we've killed the ability for natural regeneration. If you think about it, like it used to be, like some trees were like propagate like through fire, like a sequoia, lodgepole pines. They can't even, like, their seeds, their cones won't even open up without a fire,
Are
right?
you
Like
telling? Are you telling me that the recent fires up by Chambers Lake and Red Feather and all that? Are you telling me that that's not coming back then?
that's right. Like so for Colorado here, if you go out to the Hayman, which burned in 2002, so to give you a sense of scale there, um, um, the Buffalo Creek fire in 1996 was 14,000 acres. At the time, that was the largest fire in Colorado state history.
Okay.
10 years or 6 years later, the Hayman Creek fire, 140,000 acres burned. And, a couple of years ago, we had several fires of 300,000 acres plus, right?
Yes.
And so there's been a few studies been done on the Hayman, which talk about that, like, natural regeneration, assuming a stable climate, won't occur for in some areas for as much as 1,000 years.
What? Okay. Yeah. Now you got me. Okay. Holy shit. I did not know that. All right. Sorry. I didn't mean to go down this path. I got you off track there a little bit.
No, you're good, man. I mean,
But,
like that was what got me into it, right? Which is
wow.
like,
Okay.
this is very much an out of sight, out of mind problem. And like any Coloradan that I talk to about the Hayman, they go, if they were here when it happened, like they go, yeah, I remember that, man. It seemed to, like, it was big. We used to go hang out down there all the time, but since the fire, not so much. And like, this is a fire that's like Denver's backyard. It's an hour away.
Yeah.
Right. Huge, outdoor loving Coloradan group, would go and camp there. And now they don't. They just change their behaviors and they don't go there anymore. And they forget that it's gone.
Wow. So, I'm just going to pause there for a second. So, what is it? Cameron Pass? Is that what it is? Yeah. What's the pass up there by Chambers Lake?
Yeah, Cameron Pass.
So now, see, it's interesting when you're describing this to me. All right, so this is how ignorant I am on the topic. I'm thinking, okay, there was a shit ton of beetle kill up there. Freaking 70% of the trees were dead anyway. Maybe this is good. It clears it out and it'll all grow back. That's what I'm thinking. But what you're telling me is no, that's not what's going to happen.
Yeah, these fires, especially in those beetle kill, because it's so dry tinder, until like it takes a couple of decades for that beetle kill to decay enough that like it's not as huge a fire risk. Anyways, it burned just hot as blazes, and it burns up all the seed and all the seed sources. And so the problem is not that like trees won't grow there, it's that there's no seed for it.
I see that. All right, now we're getting right into what okay, now I see where this is going.
So that's part of it. But there is also, like, because historically fires used to burn in such a way that like you'd have, like, in some areas where you'd have a patch where it'd get like really hot and it'd burn out a stand, and then you'd have like kind of a meadow complex. But then others areas it'd be like lower intensity, it'd kill off like it'd burn out the deadwood and the low small trees and things like that.
Yeah.
And so you get this patchwork across a forest where you had like different. But now when you have like 300,000 acres of like, there's just no way that the seeds can get in, and you have changed like the microclimate there as well, which is it's just baked hot. There's no, shade for that little meadow system that would normally have. And so like even grasses have a hard time sometimes.
That's the way it looks southwest of Medicine Bow, kind of on the Wyoming side up in there where that's the way it looks. I mean, it's just, it's just nothing.
Yeah. I mean, to be blunt, we're losing our forests. Like that's what's happening in the West.
Wow.
Now the feds are coming in with some money, under like it was in this last congressional cycle. Mm-hmm. And so there's some money that's coming out for reforestation. In my estimation, it's not enough and it's too late. But like, there's some, the machinery is starting to recognize that like this is a priority that we need to have. If as a public landowner, this is something we all should care about. Because
if it's not burned, like we've been talking about, it's beetle kill. It feels like it's one of the two. It's like to your point, you said losing the forest. It's true. like there's not a ton of just lush, green, beautiful forest. Not really, not in the scope of things. Cause I go to the mountains all the time. It's either burned or there's beetle kill. I mean, there's a few healthy places, but not a shit ton, in my opinion. Do you agree with that? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, like, and again, it's like this delicate balance with fire. It used to be Native Americans in particular, but there were a lot of like natural ignition sources, and you'd have like large but low intensity burns that would like burn out the underbrush.
Yeah.
And it kept the forest from getting too dense. We suppressed that for 100 years for timber interests and because people just didn't like fire. And then that got the forest completely overgrown. But now we're at this point where it's so overgrown that if you let a fire get started, like it's just going to go like blazes. And they've tried doing like a little bit of like some thinning or doing some sort of controlled burns, but like the windows for being able to do that with so many people that live near or in the forests and with like the warmer weather that we're having now associated with the climate means that there's just fewer windows that you can do that. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to forest management right now.
Damn, you're depressing me, Mike. How do we fix it? I'm already depressed sometimes when I go up there. And okay, so is this why you start RenewWest? Is this what happened?
Yeah, that's right. So I had this experience with the wildfire, and I was just like, man, I got to do something about this.
Okay.
I loved the people that I knew in the Navy, but I didn't totally love the Navy. Like
Okay.
I liked it, I enjoyed it, but like there was like this component of like you have to love it if you're going to be gone away from your family that much. Otherwise it should, like the pain was just a little too high for me.
Okay.
So I knew I wanted to get out, leave active duty. I wanted to go like try to, tilt after, something big. And so that's why I started RenewWest.
And are you still running RenewWest? Is that still in operation?
RenewWest is still in operation. I'm no longer running it. I do have an ownership stake in it there. My co-founder and partner there is now taken over as CEO as I stepped out to run Aclymate.
Okay. Do you want to just before you get into Aclymate, you want to just tell the listeners really quick about RenewWest, like just give them the quick elevator pitch on what it is? Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So RenewWest started about specifically as around leveraging carbon markets to reforest areas of the West that have been burned by wildfire. And it's since grown into leveraging natural and working lands to fight climate change. So that's reforestation. RenewWest lays claim to planting the largest single site reforestation project in U.S. history, 2 million trees in Northern California.
Cool.
So super proud of that. And they're doing a lot of great things in, frankly, all over the world, South America, Central America, South Pacific. So it's really kind of developed into this larger carbon offset project development company. And I'm really proud of where they're going.
Nonprofit or no?
It's a for-profit company. My thought on this was there was a lot of nonprofits doing great work, but if we wanted to, they weren't, and they never could get to the scale that the problem required. And so I wanted to see if there was a way to leverage carbon markets in order to match both the scale of the problem and the opportunity to make money, which would drive further capital into it.
Yeah, but and I know we wanted to get into Aclymate, but how do you make money? What's the business model?
Yeah, carbon offset production. So you plant trees, they grow for a little bit, you measure them. Right in the case of the project that we did in California, you measure them. That gets sold to a company that pollutes, puts carbon emissions into the atmosphere, and the trees, by growing, clean it up.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. All right. Why'd you get out? Did you get out because you wanted to start Aclymate, or you and your partner had a separation? Why the change?
So I'd had this idea for something like Aclymate for a little while, just didn't have the bandwidth or the capacity.
Okay. All right.
And a guy that I'd known for years, who's my co-founder here at Aclymate, William, he and I were in a mastermind together. He was doing a separate company. It collapsed under the way of the pandemic. And so he was kind of looking for his next thing. And I thought, and we had like a little bit of free time at the beginning of the pandemic, which is not a good thing for an entrepreneur because you tend to fill your time, right? And so he came over and so we whiteboarded out and said like, hey, this is what I think. Acclimate's on the carbon offset sales side of things. And so we thought that there was like an integration about like being able to like having relationships directly with customers. And then we saw that the company had its own legs, and it had like a very different investor group that might have to go through it, different customer set, et cetera. And
Mm,
so it was either this option of like end Aclymate internal to, and just focus on the RenewWest stuff, or separate the two.
I
And
see. I see.
so so that's what we did. We separated the two, and I went out after Aclymate. RenewWest, since I left, they raised pretty good sized round of money. They're hiring up. They're doing
Great.
like a lot of great stuff. So it's off and running. And I'm just really proud of where it's going.
Very good. Make sure you tell your friends at RenewWest that Riderflex's day job is a recruiting firm. So since they're hiring up, make sure he calls me. No, I'm just
You got it.
All right. So Acclimate, give us the 3-minute elevator pitch. And by the way, for the listeners, it's ACLYMATE, acclimate.com. Give us the pitch. Do it. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. So Aclymate is climate management software for small to medium-sized businesses. And so what that means is that, like, if you want to deal with your carbon footprint as a small business, historically you've had to hire a consultant, or you've had to like learn it up yourself, which is like pretty intense. And so we thought that there was a lower cost, more effective way of building this out in software where you could connect up certain data sources of yours. We'd be able to provide you with what your emissions footprint is, guidance on how to reduce it. And then if you're interested in buying offsets, then we have an offset marketplace that you can buy that, and a certification that can tell everybody that you're doing the work that your employees, customers, potentially your investors, or your your large scale customers, like what they expect you to be doing.
Good for marketing for the brand, I would think. Does it help the businesses save money too, or it's not really about the money?
It's a little bit of both. So it's absolutely great for brand. On the millennials now who are like into their 40s, 75% of them work for will work for a pay cut for a company that is good on environmental practices. 2/3 of them won't work for a company at all that's bad. So it's good for that. It's good for customers to understand, especially in specific industries around sustainability. But it does save you money generally too. Like, I've always rejected this notion that that it's either like do the right thing for the climate or for the environment, or make money, right? Like, actually, when you really think about like what's going on here is generally the lowest hanging fruit for reducing your emissions is just to get more efficient, and this helps to identify like where those inefficiencies are.
Okay.
And so efficiency saves you money. And then for some of our customers, like this is table stakes. This is what they have to do to participate in their industry. For example, like Microsoft now requires all of its suppliers, irrespective of size, to reduce their emissions by 55% by 2030.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
GM doesn't have quite as stringent a thing, but they do require you to track and reduce your emissions.
Wow.
As well.
Wow.
All suppliers.
And your company and your software is going to help them track and do that, right? It's now it's like, oh, well, let's just plug into Acclimate and that's going to help.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to become an expert in this stuff. We just help you get it done and get about like doing what's like important, which is like running your business, right?
I see. Okay. I love it. Now you're not a software engineer. So how did you have to raise some cash to pay a bunch of people to code all this SaaS? I mean, it's kind of like I guess it's a SaaS company to a
Yeah, we're a SaaS marketplace hybrid. So So William is a coder. So he did all of our initial coding. Then we have had interns and other folks. We have 2 full-time developers right now beyond William.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. You and William bootstrapped it together, or have you raised some cash?
So first, a little bit of cash came out of RenewWest as we were kind of developing it. That was a pretty meager amount of money. You know, William was living in his parents' basement. He likes to talk about his Harry Potter bed because there's a little twin bed under the stairs. And I wasn't taking a salary and a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so we did that, and then we ended up getting to Techstars. That came with a little bit of cash there, and William and I are very, very good at running lean companies. So we ran that, like total development capital up until about August of last year was about 160K. And that included staff and a bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
And then we raised a small kind of pre-seed round that closed in August of last year. And we've gotten like a grant, and now we've got a potential pilot coming.
Cool.
So Yeah, at this point, we'll probably go out and raise another round, but like we're not feeling the pressure yet.
Are you paying yourself yet or no?
Yeah, small salary.
Small, yeah.
So, but we're still really, really lean. Like when I talk about like that, because we got 6 full-time and 4 interns, and
Okay.
our burn rate is like 32K a month.
All right. Well, it's not, hey, that's not too bad. It's not too bad. But you are post revenue. I mean, you have clients, you have business, you're bringing cash in. You're not just straight up burning cash.
Yeah, that's right. So we do have
Yeah.
customers, everything from like the solopreneur up to we have a bank in the Southeast with like 26 locations and 650 employees.
Great.
So,
Okay. Great.
part of being like that simple low cost solution means is that we have to continue to build the scale of it.
Yep.
And so we're not cash flow positive yet, but we're seeing the path.
That's good, man. Are you, is it by month, how do they pay you? How do you charge the client? Is it by the size of the business, or tell me how that model works?
Yeah. So we have 3 different pricing tiers for the
Okay.
software, and then we also sell offsets as well.
Okay.
And so we have a free tier, which is just kind of like basic accounting. And we're coming out with like an individual calculator as well that you can do that.
All right.
And then we have a paid analytics tier, which allows you to kind of see your footprint and start to act on it. And then we have a higher concierge, soon to be concierge/integrations tier, where we just like do the data entry for you. Either you provide it to us and we'll enter it, or manually, or in the future where we'll just pull that data directly out of your systems. And so we get paid on that, and that's a monthly recurring fee associated with that. Though most of our customers tend to pay us, upfront.
Okay. Can you do any implementation too on all the things I'm supposed to do to be greener? Can you, like, once you give me my report card, can you send people over to do whatever tactical things need to be done?
Well, so that's the idea behind the marketplace. That's exactly it, which is like there's stuff that like you can do. And right now you need to be able the data to kind of see where you're inefficient, where there's opportunities to do this.
Yeah.
But right now, so we sell offsets. We have the leading selection of offsets as far as we can tell available anywhere on the web.
Cool.
And we're partnered up with another company where we're only going to be expanding that, like a really exclusive offset offering, which is cool.
That's nice.
But we want to like get further than that. We want to actually provide you with the tools for you to be able to do the thing that you need to do, whether it's energy efficiency for your building. Maybe you own your own facility and you want to put rooftop solar in. And if you don't, can we connect you up with, a community solar or some other form of carbon-free electricity? Since we'll know where your employees, like what their commuting paths are, because we asked that during like a survey, we can help you to like potentially with mass transit offerings, or even potentially where you to place your office in order to maximize efficiency.
Okay.
And so it's just a lot of like cool things that start happening when you develop that relationship with the customer.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then you unlock it with the data.
No doubt. The reason I ask about the implementation and the tactical is because, as a small business owner myself, and most small to medium-sized business owners, people are always like giving us the list of like, yeah, you need to do all these things. And, my reaction is, okay, cool. I don't have time or people to do that.
Yeah. I mean, time's our most valuable resource. And, you're wearing like 10 hats, right? Like, and that's all because you left 5 in the closet for this month, right?
Exactly.
So, you don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And even if you like care deeply about it, like,
right.
what you care deeply most about is making the business work.
Exactly.
And that's your job. You should.
Yeah.
So like, that's why we think that we have like a pretty special offering here, because like everybody else is targeting like these big Fortune 500 types, and like we care about the small business. Like we think that this is like super important, and there's a different problem set for small businesses. They don't need, they don't need to be able to drill down into like category 5 of their scope 3 emissions. What they really need to be able to do is like, okay, what do I do here? Like, and that's what I need to do. How? Click this. That's the flow that we want to build for everybody.
I love it, man. I love it. Aclymate.com. Okay. I want to ask you, by the way, we got all the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, you got Twitter, you there's some YouTube videos. Yeah, great. you're everywhere. So for the listeners, if they want to get in touch with you, they just go to the website and click on the get started probably, or the contact page. Is that best to reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. They can reach out to me directly if they'd like. Mike@aclymate.com.
Okay.
One of the things we like to do when we tailor to small businesses is just to make sure that it's pretty relational.
Okay.
Especially right now. So they can reach out to me directly there, or they can, click on the get started. There's also an opportunity on the website to sign up for a demo with Travis, who is our director of customer experience.
Okay.
And Travis is phenomenal. He loves solving problems, and he's just like the nicest guy you ever met. So
very
you
cool.
won't regret that time.
I want to wrap this up by asking you 2 more questions about camping stuff.
Sure.
Okay. I know we're almost out of time. So me and you're both avid outdoor camper, hiker guys, right? Should we ban open fires like just altogether? What are your thoughts?
It's funny, man. When I was a kid, I used to love fireworks. Like I love, like 4th of July it still is my favorite holiday. But like it just makes me nervous, man, now that I see that but it's hard because there was a lot of like really solid and important memories to me, like built next to a campfire.
Exactly.
And so like it's so important.
I struggle with it too. I can tell by your answer you struggle with it emotionally too. I do too. Yeah.
Especially in Colorado, there's enough people in the woods that usually where there are where there's like campsites, there's usually not a lot of downfall. So like now you're having to pack your wood in.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like at this point, I think I'm kind of done with campfires. And like there's like if I'm like in like a public campground, with a fire ring, like I can buy firewood from that guy, I'll go do that.
Yeah.
But if it's anywhere else where I don't have like a good ability to put that fire out in a hurry, if something goes a little sideways, then I'm not doing it.
Yeah. I will tell the listeners, I bought 2 years ago now, a little propane, the rocks with the rocks or whatever.
Yeah.
And I put a little propane tank in the back of my Jeep, and I got about an extra extension hose. And so when I pull up, I just started pulling that propane stove out. And at first I thought, man, I'm really going to miss the fire though, right? I'm going to miss the crackling and the la la la. But over the last 2 years, I got to tell you, pulling up and just being able to pull that propane stove out and just press the button and it's on, and then I can sit there and have beer and I don't have to worry about cutting up extra wood for the next 2 hours. I kind of like it. I'm all good with it.
There's definitely that, there's like I guess what I would just say is like, just follow the local, regulations.
Yes,
and if there's if there's a fire ban in effect, man, like adhere to that. Like it's, religion.
Absolutely, bro. Yeah, totally agree. Mike, congratulations on what you're doing. I feel your passion around what you're doing. You need to make money, but you're also trying to, not to sound cheesy, but make the world a better place, so to speak, which is great. If you can do things for the environment, if you can make the world a better place for your grandchildren and make a little money so your wife doesn't get onto you for, bringing home the bacon.
I love that gal. She's never once asked about like what's in it for her. Like she's just right? Like, wow, yeah, she's cool. Just awesome about it. And that's
cool. I like what you're doing. Congratulations, Mike Smith. Thank you for sharing your story on the Riderflex podcast. I appreciate it.
It's good talking to you, Steve. Thanks for having me, man.